White and Souness.
I'm so happy I'm working with a consummate professional today.
What do you remember of the day you came up against Maradona?
Must have played against him 5 or 6 times. Each time I never got anywhere near him.
You weren't afraid to say what you mean and mean what you said.
I'm not in this to be popular. It's not a popularity contest.
And I went on to do talkSPORT and still do it with you. But I loved it. I don't miss Sky.
I like working with Roy, Jimmy. What's his name? Man United player.
The mayor of Manchester,
yeah.
as Simon calls him. Gary Neville.
Gary Neville. He was like the gift that kept giving.
Hi everybody, welcome along to episode 11 of White and Souness. It's normally Simon and Souness, but Simon's not here, so I'm taking full advantage of that. And I think I'm quite right too, Graeme.
I'm so happy I'm working with a consummate professional today.
Thank you very much.
It's got a ring to it, doesn't it? White and Souness.
White and Souness, yeah. Jordan, he's gone, he's history. Graeme, you and I, when did we first meet? We have to go back to the mid-80s, I think.
It would have been when I was back for a Scottish game.
Yeah.
Somewhere in Glasgow.
Yeah.
Because that all led to you coming out to Italy when I was out there. If you remember, you came out and we had a couple of days filming and lots of fun. It
was fantastic. I was working in Scottish television and I pushed my luck a bit. And I wanted you to play host to us for a few days when you were out at Sampdoria to do a half-hour documentary with you. And you agreed, and we did. Nervi, the place was called Nervi.
A little town south of Genoa where Sampdoria are based. 6-7 miles from Genoa. A little village with one street. My garden I lived in a villa that had been knocked into apartments. Big garden, bottom of the garden, Mediterranean.
Yeah.
It was tough.
It was beautiful, wasn't it?
Tough. No,
you loved it.
No, it wasn't.
You
know what I remember about that? It was
Go
like,
on.
you were hanging out of a sunroof of a car, filming. Can you remember that?
I do. We were filming you driving about. We were filming you walking about. It was a special place. Trevor Francis, the late great Trevor Francis, played for them too.
Yeah, we were great mates out there. We spent every waking moment together.
Yeah.
Working, socialising. We lived in the same villa that had been knocked into flats. He was a great guy.
And you gave us great access. We were even on a bus, if I remember. Sampdoria were playing in a European tie. We were filming on the bus, and you said, "Look at these two behind us, with crazy hair and the tie undone. One was Vialli, one's Mancini."
2 kids, yeah.
Yeah.
But was that not Benfica? We were playing Benfica.
You were playing Benfica.
That's right.
You were. I remember that. You had a guy Cerezo, a Brazilian who played.
Yeah, no.
Verkevod
was. Cerezo came after I'd been there.
Okay.
I think he didn't replace me. They got a German, name escapes me. But Cerezo did play there. No, we had Bourdon, who was in the squad in the Italian team. Verkevod, great defender. Manini, great defender. We had Vialli and Mancini. I went there, Jim, because I was 31 at the time, and they wanted an experienced player to play with these young kids that were coming through.
Yeah.
And it was the most enjoyable time.
And they called you Charlie, didn't they?
Yeah.
Champagne Charlie.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
That was my name from Liverpool, where I liked a glass of champagne. I never a big drinker, but I did drink a fair bit of champagne.
I love that. I mean, it seems like yesterday was so long ago now. And you loved your time there, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, it was tough for me to leave Liverpool because this was 84 after we'd won the European Cup, the League and the League Cup that year. And I'm captain of Liverpool, great team. You know, been there 7 years. It was tough to leave, but at that time in Italy, all the best players in the world were in Italy. You know, Maradona was there at the same time. You know, Zico was there, Junior, other Brazilian, Platini, Boniek. I could go on and on. Socrates. That was the league in the world at the time. All the big players were there, and it was great. I thought, I'll go there, I'll test myself against these guys. And I actually found playing in Italian football easier than being in English First Division as it was then.
I mean, I've got to say, for me, being a young journalist in television, you were the perfect contact for me. You were a brilliant contact for me. You could probably have seen me far enough now and again when I was on the blower to you. And then, of course, I kept in touch with you. And you gave me a bit of news that still makes me shudder when I think of it.
Well, we obviously had struck up a friendship, and I was in Italy. You'd been over, we'd done the documentary, we'd filmed the documentary, and then I'd been offered the Rangers job. And then it took 5 minutes to say yes to that. And that meant leaving that Italian lifestyle behind. But I said yes to it, and then I phoned you on that. I said, make sure you're at Glasgow Airport tomorrow night. I'm on a flight coming up from London. And you turned up with a crew, and you got the exclusive, didn't you?
It was incredible. I mean, we filmed your arrival. Word was out. There were murmurings that a big story was breaking. And you were the story. You were in Glasgow, and then everything. I mean, your feet didn't touch the ground after that, did they? You were the new player manager of Rangers.
If you remember, I was coming in to have a press conference to go back to Italy to finish the season there. So I was going to come in, I think, would have been the end of March, maybe the beginning of April.
Right.
I'm going to be new manager, press conference, and all that entailed. And then I got back on a plane and went back out there to finish the season. So it was, I can remember, I can remember the jacket I had on when I arrived at Glasgow Airport.
Yeah.
And you were there to meet me. Exciting times.
It was phenomenal. And thereafter, you and I kept in touch. And again, you were good to me. Because each time you made a major signing, after you'd settled into the job.
That was every month.
That was every month. You were giving me a name. You were throwing a name at me. This might happen. That might happen. Terry Butcher joined you. Chris Woods, the goalkeeper,
Tell me,
joined
did that irritate the sort of established media up there? You getting...
Well, probably. I mean, I was renowned for getting very good information regarding Rangers. But I mean, it was a time like no other. Because you totally turned the place on its head. And you wanted to succeed at Rangers from day one.
It was exciting, wasn't it? I mean, I look back on those days. If Walter Smith was sitting here, and then obviously he succeeded me in the Rangers job, he would tell you, and he went on to a very successful management career, he would tell you the best 5 years he had in football was the 5 years we had together. It was exciting. There was lots of laughs. We're very successful as well, but he just loved what we were doing. You know, he's a Rangers supporter, which obviously he was delighted the way it went. But you know, we had some exciting times.
Do you remember the day you signed? You're in the blue room, and it was all announced, and Walter was there, and the focus of attention was on you. And I spotted Walter sitting in a chair on his own, and Walter was being Walter, very understated, very quiet,
Calm.
He preferred to be out of the limelight, and you were very comfortable being in it. Would that be right?
Yeah. You know, as I say modestly, I was a big player, so I was used to the limelight. Played for Liverpool, went to Italy. As big as Liverpool is in world football, the media attention the players got at that time in Italy, I'm sure it's still the same, was off the charts compared to what we had at Liverpool. And Sampdoria were not registering as a big football club at that time. So going to Italy, it just all that, you know, media stuff, television, just being a bigger football person, far greater in Italy at the time.
Yeah.
So then coming back to Glasgow, and then it was, you know, it was just a case of, well, I quickly worked out that they wanted me on the front page of the newspaper as well as the back page of the newspaper. And you were fighting that all the time. So I didn't enjoy it all the time, but I knew how the game worked.
And you came out of Italy, having done what you were there to do. You very much helped Sampdoria become a major force. And you came up against the best in the world, if not the best in the world.
Well, all the best individuals were there, maybe not the best teams. As I said, Italian football suited me down to the ground. I found it easier playing there because in those days, the Italians didn't press high up the pitch. So there was no sort of battleground in midfield. You could get the ball, you could turn, make passes, and then it was only when you got into the last third that there, you know, so many bodies, it was difficult to get goals and make passes. But as a midfield player in Italy at that time, I found it easier.
What do you remember of the day you came up against Maradona, who was playing for Napoli?
Well, we played them in a pre-season friendly I thought, I'll let him know I'm in the game, but he's far too cute. And I must have played against him 5 or 6 times. Each time I never got anywhere near him. All the great players see you coming. And he was strong as well. And what he could do, he could get himself in the air at the right time. So, and a lot of the time you're bouncing off him because he had his weight in the right place at the right time. He was just another level.
I mean, Milan were at another level as well, weren't they? With the players they had.
It was just prior to their dominant period.
Right.
But they still had a very good team. Ray Wilkins and Mark Haitley were there. I remember we played them in the 2-legged final of the Italian Cup.
Right.
So the first game up there, and we won 1-0, and I scored a goal in the San Siro. So how many people can say he scored a winning goal in a cup final in San Siro? And then we went back to our stadium. I think we beat them 3-1 that night in our stadium. And that was the first major trophy that Sampdoria had ever won. And it was the story of Sampdoria at that time with the president, Paolo Mantovani, a very, very wealthy man. This was his club, and he was buying all the best young players. And as I've said already, they wanted an experienced man like me, or old boy like me.
An old boy like you. It was phenomenal, though. I mean, Italian football, everybody was watching Italian football.
The world was watching Italian football.
Yeah.
Simply because they're the best players in the world. It was glamorous. You go to the games, it was full of glamorous women in fur coats and, fully made up as if they're going out for dinner. And it was just, it was a very different atmosphere within the games. It was very different for the players and their attitude to the game. When I went there, I realised, because my last game for Liverpool was in the European Cup final against Rome in Rome, and they thought they were being smart with us before the game. The buzzer went from the referee's room. We went down the stairs into the sort of entrance to the tunnel that took out onto the pitch, and they kept us waiting there for 3 or 4 minutes. And we thinking, they're being smart with us. But when they came down the stairs, they all had fear written on their face. And then when I went to play in Italy, I realised the pressure those guys must have been in that night, because the players, because I'm not understanding what's being written and what's being said on the television. Lots of criticism if you lost the game, lots of criticism if you missed a penalty or didn't play well. But I was oblivious to that because I didn't understand that. And even if I did understand, it wouldn't have impacted on me.
Yeah.
But Monday morning, after a Sunday game, the players have got their heads in the paper, and they've been given a 4 or a 5 out of 10. They were like lower than a snake's belly. You couldn't get them going. Whereas Trevor went a wee bit like that, but Trevor and I's attitude, we should take the mickey out of them for being like that. So I understand that Italian mentality to football. They worried themselves sick about what people thought of them.
And after that, I mean, Milan, when you think of who they had, Hullet, Rijkaard, Van Basten. I mean,
that was after me.
That was after you. Inter, Mateus, Klinsmann. I mean, in its heyday, was there a spell that Serie A rivaled what we've got now in the Premier League?
Most definitely. Serie A was the league. What they had in those days, they had a very wealthy benefactor, that super rich owners who would just fund it out of their own pocket. And that's gone. When you look at, I think they've got so many foreign owners now in Italian football, and right now they've suffered a wee bit, and that's fed through to the national team as well. I think normally you could rattle off half a dozen top Italian players. You can't do that anymore. Their league has suffered. It's no way is it anywhere near what the English Premier League is now. I believe our league is easily the strongest league out there.
It was an amazing time for you, and so was your time at Rangers.
Can we jump?
Go on.
Chip, was it tough for you to leave Sky?
Going on to Sky, well, I mean, I'd been 23 years at Sky. I don't know if you remember, one of the first live games I did, the first year I was there, it was a Rangers Celtic Scottish Cup final. Mm-hmm. And having helped me out my career all the way along, you proceeded to help me out then as well in the late 80s. I beg your pardon, in the late 90s. Rod Wallace scored the only goal of the game. Rangers won it, and you were a studio guest with me. And that was a fantastic occasion as well. And I remember asking you, did you want to come up and be in the studio? And that was great. And that sent me off covering live football. I was very lucky, Graeme. I went after things. I pursued things at Sky. I had that mentality that I had when I asked you if I could come to Italy and do a half-hour documentary.
Brass Neck, I think it's called.
Brass Neck. Brass Neck is exactly what it is. And, you know, you helped me along the way as well. Even when you were at Sky, we would always bump into each other. But after 23 years, after many successful years there, transfer deadline day, wearing the yellow tie and everything that went with it, it was a great old time. And, you know, you move on.
Do you miss it?
Not particularly, no. I miss
no
some,
part of it?
Not really. I miss some of the people that I worked with. But the memories are so good that I hold on to them. I don't really miss it.
Highlight?
Oh, many highlights.
What was the biggest transfer story you broke?
There were many stories in there, and I was very fortunate to be on some very special nights. One of the biggest ones when it was confirmed that Mesut Ozil was going to Arsenal. I mean, that was a
From
huge
Real
night.
Madrid.
Yeah, I mean, that was a massive story. When Berbatov went to Manchester United, and at the same time Rubinho looked like going to Chelsea, but he ended up at Manchester City. When Fernando Torres went from Liverpool to Chelsea, and Abramovich got his
What is the
man.
biggest story you've broke in your career?
You're going to love this. The biggest story I have broken was you going to Rangers. Of that, there's no doubt.
That's because you were young.
I was young. You were at the absolute top of your game. You were a major, major name in football. Top player. You captained Liverpool to European Cup final glory 3 times, and you'd been to Italy. And that was the biggest story. And what happened after that stood me in fine stead as well. What you did at Rangers after that, because you very kindly let me follow you in your first season at Rangers, and you went on in your first season to lift the league title. And that's why you were there. So that was probably the one of the, if not the biggest, one of the biggest stories that I was ever behind covering. And I was always very, very grateful to you. You must look at me and you think, oh, Christ, not him again. I can't get rid of him. And here we are at talkSPORT. We do a show with the man Jordan, which is great. So after Sky, talkSPORT has been great. There was a time that it overlapped, and that was too much for me, Graeme. And I hit kidney problems with that, and I became ill trying to do the 2 jobs, and only one job where I was able to do, and I went on to do talkSPORT and still do it with you. But I loved it. I don't miss Sky now, though.
We
Not
can't
really.
escape each other, that's all.
We can't escape each other. Do you miss Sky?
A wee bit of me misses it. You know, sitting there. I wasn't like sitting in front of a camera. I was like talking football. I like to talk football.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously it makes good television if we don't all agree. And I you know, okay, occasionally I'll be mischievous, but I miss the talking of football. What I don't miss is travelling up and down the country. Travelling to is super difficult, whether it's by train, airplane, cars.
Yeah. Going to
So I don't miss that. And then sometimes,
Yeah.
if we're in Liverpool or Manchester or Newcastle, I mean, sort of travelling up on a Saturday for a Super Sunday game, staying in a hotel, and you're on your own, you're thinking, my eyes, I should be home with my young wife and enjoying a dinner somewhere. But I'm like you, you know, I don't dwell on things.
No.
Yeah, I don't dwell. I can park stuff. Sky were great to me simply because when I got sacked at Newcastle, I thought, that's me done with management. It just isn't for me anymore. And my wife encouraged me to get involved at Sky. And I said, I'm not sure. I've been doing a wee bit. So I'm not sure. So I tried and I started to enjoy it. So I did that. I mean, with the overlap between being a manager and Sky, it's worked out like this for me. Played 20 years with an overlap into management. Did management for 20 years with overlap on both sides. And Sky for the best part of 20 years. So how lucky am I? Because I played with great, and now I'm doing this stuff only for 20 years. But that's another story. I look at some of the players I played with, great players who at the age of 33, as players did then, 34 finished.
Yeah.
and never earned another shilling out of football. And that was done for them. Football was
You're
finished.
still going.
And I'm still going, and I love watching football. I love talking about football. And, you know, I like to think you get to a certain age, you've got a certain amount of experience, that maybe some people will listen to my opinion. And I accept not everyone will agree.
But I'm not just blowing smoke up your bum. You realise how popular you are. You've got a hell of a lot of respect for the way you spoke at Sky, for the way you read a game, for the way you played when you were a player. But thereafter, on your Sky duties, you knew that if you get in a taxi in London or Liverpool, people would compliment you. You weren't afraid to say what you mean and mean what you said.
Yeah, but it's impossible. It's impossible to be popular with everyone, because if you're doing a game as a winner, as a loser, if the losing team have been doing something very obviously wrong, or some players have not been very good, I would say that. I would say, well, I didn't think he was at it today, or I think he should have done better here. So you're criticising someone in a 90 minutes. And of course that doesn't mean you're very popular in certain areas. But I worked out very early on in my football career when I was a player. And I made a conscious decision, I'm not in this to be popular. It's not a popularity contest.
That's good.
And if I upset people by the way I play, so be it. Now I'm in management, no doubt upset people. And then now I'm a media person. If I'm upsetting people, then I'm prepared to take that on the chin, because it's only my opinion.
Roy Keane's outlook's the same, is it? When he's on telly,
I think we're quite similar, yeah.
Yeah.
Quite similar.
You got your favourites there, as in who you were on with?
Yeah, I think I like working with Roy, Jimmy Carragher and what's his name? Ex-Man United player.
The Mayor of Manchester,
yeah.
as Simon calls him. Gary Neville.
Gary Neville. He was like the gift that kept giving.
You picked your moments with him, though, didn't you? On the famous day that Liverpool battered them. What was it?
Well,
7?
I didn't pick him. When I stated before the game, I thought Liverpool will win and win well today. And both him and Roy had a chuckle at me. And this was off camera. And then when we went on camera, Gary challenged me to repeat what I'd said, and I said it. And then I didn't expect 7. I thought it was going to be a 2 or 3. And then afterwards, we're back in the studio, and we're on air, and I challenged Gary to repeat what he had said off camera, because he had said off camera, and Liverpool didn't even play well today. So when I said, come on then, you challenged me before the game, I said what I said off camera, what did you say off camera? And he wouldn't say it. And I had to say, well, I'll tell you what he said. He must have had a short-term memory loss. And it was a great day for me. It couldn't have gone any better.
Yeah.
I think that was my second last game.
What do you think was the biggest game that you ever were part of at Sky? The most memorable game? I mean, too many to mention.
Well, we did Champions League games, didn't we? I mean, drama. Was it Man City QPR?
Oh.
Aguero.
Yeah. Sensational.
You know, Martin, Aguero.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like the last minute of the last game to win the league. It was just unbelievable drama. But there was many great games. I said, with great European nights as well.
And of course, more recently, you'd gone by the time that David Moyes has been encountering a bit of trouble at West Ham, not least recently, when they were 4 down at half-time at home to Arsenal, and there was a mass exodus. Did you feel for him?
Yeah, because he's been on the receiving end of a few bad results of late. They won a trophy last year, so there's great belief within the supporters. I think they're sitting 9th as we're doing this podcast. So it's not, it's not the end of the world, but I think where he's getting a lot of stick is for the manner in which they're playing. They play a counter-attacking football. They're 16th in the league table for keeping possession, 16th, and yet you're 9th in the league. So, that tells you how they're playing. He plays on the break a lot of the time. And if you're buying a season ticket at West Ham, you want to see your team dominate the ball, and they're not seeing that. So I understand why he is getting criticism. If you're going down the road of playing to nick games, you better be nicking them. Because if you're going down that road and not having the ball and still losing it, it will only compound the pressure on you.
And of course, you won a European trophy last season.
And that gets you so much credit.
Right.
But you know, football's never been more fickle in terms of football management and how long they're given to get it right. But this is not his first rodeo. He's been on the block several times.
Yeah, yeah. He's under pressure, and I feel for him as a Scot. You probably feel the same.
He's one of the good guys.
He's one of the good guys, isn't he?
Definitely one of the good guys.
You hope he does well, but when you hear a noise like the noise we're hearing, it's hard to imagine, Graeme.
Well, he's got
they'll carry on.
Well, what's the possible outcome? It's more of the same, then that leads to the exit door, or he starts to win games. I think ultimately he has to start winning games and be a bit more proactive in their approach to games, because that is obviously what he's given them in his time that is still not enough, because there appear to be, even winning a trophy, some dissenting voices. So they're not all totally happy with what they're being served up.
Are fans all too quick to forget what you've given?
Yeah.
Moyes has given them a trophy. Are fans too quick to forget?
Of course they are.
West Ham fans.
But it's not just West Ham supporters. I think that's right across the board.
Yeah.
You know, I think most of the big clubs are like that. I mean, the ones that come up that may end up being a bit of a yo-yo in terms of up and down from the Premier League, they might get a wee bit more time, but not a lot more.
Just finish on this. I think you've said to me privately, and I'm sure you're happy to say it publicly, your best, you enjoyed the years at Rangers as manager so much that maybe with the benefit of hindsight, you wouldn't have made that move at that time to Liverpool.
No, 100%. You know, you don't get a job at a football club generally, although there's going to be a great job going at the end of this season, that's Liverpool. But normally you don't get a job at a football club because it's going well. You know, I walked into Rangers, hadn't won the league for 9 years. We quickly got it right. And, you know, when I left there, we had half the England team. We had a group of players that, you know, Walter didn't have to do much tinkering with that group. They were going to be successful. So what I should have done, I just got fed up with all the bad news. I was banned from the touchline. I just felt they wanted to be on the front page of the newspaper as much as they could get. It wasn't about football stories with me anymore. And I just thought, I've had enough of this. And I was offered a Liverpool job twice, said no to it. Third time of asking them yet. And what I should have done at that time, and David Moyes suggested it to me, was have a sabbatical. Take a year out. Take 18 months out. Let Walter get on with it. Because I'd done the hard work. I should have enjoyed the fruits of our hard work by sitting back and just watching a game of football. That's what I should have done. Instead, I took the Liverpool job, which I think I was always going to get offered sooner or later, but I took it at the wrong time for me. It was a very difficult job.
Graeme, always good being with you. I've tormented you over many years, and I think I'm going to continue to be doing so.
No, his brass neck continues.
Brass necking it, and that will continue. That's it from us for episode 11. And remember, you can join Graeme and myself next week for the next podcast at 1. That's Monday at 1.